From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. A vaccine against weight gain. It's something that may be on the horizon, thanks to new research from the University of Colorado Boulder. The study focuses on a strain of bacteria that prevents obesity by reducing inflammation. Chris Lowry is a professor of integrative physiology at CU and led the research. His study found that he could prevent mice from becoming overweight even when raised on the equivalent of an all-McDonald's diet. When his team injected mice with that particular strain of bacteria, the junk food mice gained no more weight than mice with healthy diets.
So by interfering with the inflammation, we completely prevented the obesity. And I think that's something that certainly wasn't anticipated by us, and I'm not sure it was really anticipated by others, which perhaps is why it's kind of captured everyone's imagination.
Chris Lowry joined me to talk about this research and why he thinks it's a promising solution for obesity, and how the results caught him off guard. He remembers his fellow researcher named Luke Roberts coming to him with some initial results.
Luke came to me one day and showed me data that this bacterium completely prevented any weight gain in response to this Western-style diet. And
wow.
I remember that conversation because I said, Luke, are you sure? Are you sure that's real? It really took us by surprise.
Yeah. How many times did you go back and check that data?
Oh, many, many times.
Well, your new research uses a strain of bacteria that's commonly called vaccae. It reduces inflammation, which is key to preventing obesity. Can you briefly explain how vaccae protects a mammal's body against inflammation?
Yeah, so this line of research goes back several decades, in fact. The bacterium that we've been studying for about 25 years was isolated from mud along the shores of Lake Kyoga in Uganda. So these bacteria, once they're inside the body, they interact with a type of immune cell that's considered a teacher in a way. And these immune cells, they're part of our innate immune system. They interact with other immune cells, the students, and they instruct these students to become anti-inflammatory as opposed to pro-inflammatory. And then once they've had this training, their anti-inflammatory effects can persist for weeks, if not months.
So, Chris, we have other drugs on the market right now, like Ozempic, that help with type 2 diabetes. Some people take that for weight control as well. Why is vaccae worth considering when we do have these other drugs like Ozempic?
Yeah, these other drugs are very effective. They do have some side effects. I think one reason that we should consider exploring this further is that this approach of giving this bacterium, in a sense, it's simply replacing something that we've lost as humans have transitioned from our ancestral hunter-gatherer and agricultural existence to a more urban existence. It's recognized that there's really an epidemic of inflammatory disease that's worldwide, focused on these urban societies, Western societies, and that includes things like allergic asthma, type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, and many other inflammatory conditions. And it's been proposed that the increase in these conditions is really being driven by our lack of exposure to these types of microorganisms. And vaccae is just one of those. And so we're simply taking something that comes from nature and putting it back.
So getting back to your research, have you tested this on people yet?
Our lab has not tested this. We're hoping to do our first clinical trials in 2025. CU Boulder launched a spin-out company recently that's called Kyoga. So it's Kioga. It's named after Lake Kyoga in Uganda, the source of Mycobacterium vaccae.
Oh.
And the primary aim of that startup is really to push forward making these bacteria commercially available so that people could buy them in supplements or even as food ingredients.
Like a probiotic supplement or something.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, I have to ask, how do you simulate an all McDonald's diet for mice? I'm just picturing you holding up little French fries and feeding them.
Yeah, not quite. So it's a formulated diet that consists of high fat, but importantly, it's high trans fat. So that's kind of a McDonald's feature. And then the other feature is high sugar, which is really what our Western diet looks like for many people.
Sure. The mice with the bad diet in your study didn't gain weight, but they didn't lose weight either. Do you think vaccae is ultimately promising for weight loss?
That's a great question. That is indeed one of our next questions that we'd like to answer. So we want to give the bacteria to obese animals and see if treatment with the bacterium can restore more healthy weight, a weight that you would expect for a mouse, for example, that was being given a healthy diet.
Are you concerned that developing a treatment that would allow people to maintain poor eating habits is counterproductive?
I really like that question. I think it's important that we consider that. I think that won't happen. And the reason I think that won't happen is that we've known for quite some time that there's a bidirectional relationship between obesity and depression, for example. And so obesity is a risk factor for depression, and depression can lead to poor dietary choices and lifestyle choices that enhance obesity, even by interfering with the inflammation that can contribute to both. When people experience better mental health, I think we would predict that they would make better dietary choices and better lifestyle choices. And so we would kind of invert this negative downward spiral and change it into an upward beneficial spiral.
Certainly, a lot of people with bad diets live in food deserts and don't have access to grocery stores full of fresh fruits and vegetables. Briefly, how do you see your work helping folks like that?
I think this has great potential for people that are in food deserts, primarily because we can anticipate that we could provide this at an affordable cost. So we think we can make this both affordable and available, even to people in food deserts.
Chris, I'm curious, how have fellow researchers reacted to your findings?
Lots of thumbs up, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, we've been exploring the benefits of these bacteria, as I mentioned, for over 25 years, and some of my colleagues have asked, why haven't you moved into clinical trials? And so I think there's a certain number of my colleagues that have kind of been waiting for this. The proof is in the pudding, as they say, and we really need to take that next step.
Chris Lowry is Associate Professor of Integrative Physiology at CU. He's studying a bacteria that could lead to a vaccine that prevents weight gain. We'll have more on his research in our show notes and at KUNC.org. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thanks so much for listening.